Claw Reads. I'm Courtney, and today you're joining me for a mid-year book tag. If you're new here, welcome. Thanks so much for stopping by. Check out the content on my channel to see if this is the place you would like to subscribe to. If you're returning, thanks so much for coming back. Please consider subscribing and hit the bell for notifications. You can also check out my memberships where you get a few extra perks. One of them is a book club. We are currently reading The Battle of the Bookshops by Ali Brady. It's really informal, low pressure. Just a couple of us are doing it. We read it. We kind of chat about it on the posts tab and move on about life. But it's kind of fun to read something with somebody else, and so check that out. I am filming this on June 19th, otherwise known as Juneteenth in North America here. And if you are not sure what Juneteenth is, I hope you consider looking it up. But in summary, it is the official end of slavery for Black Americans in the United States. The Emancipation Proclamation did come out, but it took a while for word to get down to everybody who was enslaved. And so June 19th is the day that most of all slaves were finally free. I'm putting that in quotes. But we are home today. Our state is, well, it's a federal holiday now, but it's shut down. My husband and I are both state employees, so we are home with the girls, and then we are also home tomorrow because my oldest Kennedy has her first college tour, so we're all gonna walk around the campus and check it out, and so it's gonna be a great day and weekend. But I thought I had time today to do my mid-year book tag. I cannot believe that we are already mid-2025. I feel like, and everybody's saying this year is flying by, and I just don't know where time is going, but yeah, we are here. So I have these questions from the channel Carrie Can Read. I will tag the original video. I'm not going to tag people in this, but if you want to use these questions, I'll have them below, and you are more than welcome to use them and create your video content for answering them. But I watch Carrie Can Read every now and then, not often, but I'm trying to expand my list of booktubers because there's like really no shows on. There's nothing really going, like my shows are booktubers, and so I'm always like chomping at the bit to watch the next thing. And so found her channel a while ago and then just happened to come across this tag recently. And this tag is just all about the things that have happened so far on your book journey. I will say at this point I have read 74 books this year. I'm trying to get to 120. I'm reading slower this year than I have in the past, and I don't know necessarily, I should rephrase that. I don't know if it's necessarily slower because I can't like measure by time, but I do know that I am reading longer books, less middle grade, more literary fiction, and so I think that's just taking me a bit longer, and that's totally fine. And I'm reading the books that I want to read. I'm not DNFing as much because even if it's longer or it's just a more of a journey part of a book, like I'm in it. So let's get started on the questions. So the first question is, what is the best book you've read so far in 2025? Now, because I've read 74 books, I don't have one book for every answer, so just bear with me. So the first book that I thought about was the book This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan. This book is part of the Skating-Lynn series. It's book number 2, and these are interconnected standalone romances. I think you can read them by themselves. However, it follows 3 friends in 3 different books. I read book 2 first, and it spoiled me because I thought it was the best book in the trilogy. And this book follows Soledad, who is getting divorced. She finds her husband is cheating on her, and she is just trying to like gather the pieces of her life. It very much gives Waiting to Exhale, actually. And she, in the midst of that, she's been doing like some catering work, and at one of the events that she goes to with her husband, she runs into her husband's sort of arch nemesis, who works with him, and this guy is everything. He's tall, dark, handsome. He's Just an amazing guy. He is a single dad, so he's already been in a relationship, divorced. Both of his kids are twins, they have autism, and so his hands are kind of busy. However, he does notice that Soledad is going through a situation and realizes that her guy is a horrible guy, and he kind of steps in as a friend, confidant, and then a little bit more. And I'm telling you, this man was the ultimate book boyfriend. And as we go through the series, they are still together. They're living their best life. They've ran off into the sunset, and it's amazing. And so I really, really love that book. Another book that I think was the best so far, and I just read this book, was Silver Elite. If you've been reading my or watching my wrap-ups or my daily vlogs, you'll know I read this about a week ago. Yeah, about a week ago. This is a fantasy romance novel, but not your normal like romantasy. This book is really heavy on plot and character development, and this book follows in a dystopian world where there are mods and sort of regulars. Mods are people that have been modified, and so they have different powers. Our main character has telepathy and the ability to sort of talk to other mods with their minds, and her guardian gets killed for the same thing, and so she's kind of hiding, well, she has been hiding that she is a mod. However, the people who killed her guardian know that she was affiliated with him, so they scoop her up to add her to their sort of boot camp in the Silver Block, which is sort of like a military thing. And so they are working in a group to train them to take down mods, basically. And so she's pretending that she's not a mod, however she is, and all the time learning how to take down her own people. This book was so good to me. I have said before, I'm a fantasy reader, but not like high fantasy. This book was so accessible, and all of the imagery was beautifully written. It wasn't too much overly descriptive language. I could pronounce all the names. Like, it was really, really good. And I'm chomping at the bit to get to the second book. I don't even know when it comes out, but it was really good, and so I highly recommend that book. The next question is the best sequel you've read so far in 2025. This one was hard because I hadn't read a lot of sequels, but I picked Enchanted. This is the sequel to Phantasma, and they are a series. I think it's called the Wicked Games series. However, they are standalone. So in Enchanted, we have the story of the younger sister from the first book, and while that is a connection, you don't have to know anything about the first book to jump into that second book. But basically, this whole series is about wicked games. So in this book, our main character, her mom has passed away. We know that from the first book. And she finds an invitation to this ball that's addressed to her mom, but since her mom's passed away, she takes it and goes. However, the invitation is super old and expired. She gets there, and the main guy is like, hey, the party's over, like, you've missed it, don't even worry about coming in. And she's like, absolutely not, I see people in there, let me in, I'm making my way in. And she does, only to find out that she is in the middle of the riskiest hide-and-seek game ever, and if you are found in the hide-and-seek game, you are killed. Which is easy for everybody in the game because they're all immortal, but she's not immortal. So now she's roped into this game, and her sort of bantering enemy has to become her partner. They fake date or they fake marry so that if something happens to her, he could save her. And so it is a really good book. It's like a goofy time when you're thinking about fantasy books, but still very enjoyable. And again, this is another really accessible, fun fantasy book. Okay, the next question is a new release you haven't read yet, but want to. There's so many, so I just picked the most recent, which is Sounds Like Love by Ashley Poston. I've been up in the air about Ashley Poston. Actually, the last book I read of hers, I gave 2 stars, I believe. I did not really enjoy it. She does magical realism books, but I have not found that her magical realism books are that great. And so this book's a little bit different in that we have a woman who is a songwriter. She's kind of stunted on writing songs, but she's hearing like a melody in her head, and she's hearing somebody sing this melody, and then she ends up meeting the person who has been singing the melody in her head, and she has to work with this person to sort of finish the song. It sounded a lot better to me than any of her other books, and so I am looking forward to that. I did pick that up on Monday, and so I'm looking forward to getting into that. I'm in the middle of reading a literary fiction right now because I just finished a romance before that, and I need a little break between my romances, so I will be getting to that soon. Okay, next up it says, what is the most anticipated release for the second half of the year? There's so many, so I just picked a couple. The first is Fake Skating and Made for Each Other. These are both by Lynn Painter. Lynn Painter is like dropping so many books this year. I don't know what is going on. Let me look up Made for Each Other. This book comes out July 1st, I want to say. So this one's, oh, July 15th. So this one's just around the corner. This one says, a millionaire and a house cleaner are a match made in heaven in this sparkling romantic comedy by Lynn Painter. As a professional cleaner, Abby Mariano never thought her apartment would have any sort of infestation. Because of a building-wide outbreak, she now needs somewhere to stay for a week. As a part-time student with 2 jobs, she doesn't have many options. Then the solution presents itself. The owner of the penthouse she cleans is out of town for a week. She normally wouldn't consider it, but he's literally never around. It goes great until one morning she finds 2 strangers in the kitchen. They're the parents of the penthouse owner, and they seem to think they've heard all about Abby, not their son's maid, but his girlfriend. Declan Powell has always put his career first, working his way up to become an executive at his company, but he still has his sights set on the next level. When his parents mention that they met his girlfriend Abby, he all but chokes on his escargot. As wonderful as it sounds that she was just darling, he doesn't actually have a girlfriend. He made her up to get everyone off his back. When Dex finds out who Abby really is, he makes her a proposition. Pretend to date him, and he'll provide everything she needs during her little arrangement. So, fake dating, super cute cover, and I just love Lynn Painter books. Like, in my eyes, she can do no wrong. So then the next book she has coming out in December is called Fake Skating. This must be a YA book because the cover looks very much like Better Than the Movies. So it says, from play dates on the playground to sneaking into movie theaters, Dani and Alec were inseparable as kids until Dani moved away. Years later, Dani is back in Minnesota and excited to reconnect with the nerdy and comforting Alec. But teenage Alec is nothing like the boy she remembers. He's the hockey star in a town where hockey players are worshipped as gods, and he loves it. When one thing leads to another and Dani and Alec find themselves thrown together and playing the role of boyfriend and girlfriend, complicated becomes an understatement. In this Minnesota town, hockey may rule, but romance is about to take place. A swoony boy next door fake dating romance from Lynn Painter. So I think that one sounds great as well. A lot of fake dating happening, but I think there's enough time between all the fake dating to enjoy it. And then the other book that I was looking forward to is Overruled-Lana Ferguson. This is the one that comes out July 1st. This one says, 2 divorced lawyers determined to share only beds but not hearts discover that love is something that can't be overruled in this romance by Lana Ferguson. Danica Pierce has one great love in her life, work. As one of the top divorce lawyers in Austin, Danica lets her caseload keep her warm at night and has no problem being married to her job. Not when love only ends in hurt. When the biggest case of her career gives her a shot at making partner, it seems like nothing could possibly stand in her way, except for her infuriating secret. She's sleeping with the enemy. Ezra Hart is known for charming his way in and out of a courtroom. In the matter of winning Danica Pierce's heart, however, he's been far less successful. With her verdict to keep things purely physical with no chance of appeal, Ezra struggles to show Danica he's more than the insufferable playboy she's pegged him to be, especially since they find themselves on opposing sides of Danica's most important case to date. While Dani and Ezra battle it out in the courtroom, the real trial is the one happening between them. When Dani realizes that everything she knows of Ezra might be hearsay, and that she's not the only one with emotional baggage, she must choose between her fear of trusting again and the feelings of blossoming between her and the man she thought was her worst enemy. I love this one because instead of like fake dating or enemies to lovers, they're already hooking up. Like literally they've already been hooking up. She's in it for the physical aspect, and now they're working together on opposing sides. I think that sounds really good. Okay, the next question is biggest disappointment. I kind of had four. And so the first one is The Tenant by Frieda McFadden. I recently read this book. It was a new release. You know, my girl Frieda, she is popping these books out left and right, but this book was definitely rushed. The plot never really came together. It definitely seemed rushed and was not very good. Then Out of the Woods by Hannah Bonham-Young. I was so excited to read this because I read Out on a Limb, which is like a companion novel to Out of the Woods. And this one just didn't hit. This one follows one of the couples from the first book. And they are kind of in a standstill in their marriage. And so they decide to go on this sort of retreat to reconnect. And the book ends up following sort of how they are on this trip, but also like the relationships they have with the other couples on the trip. And then the sort of third act breakup was kind of random, so not my favorite. Then I picked Is She Really Going Out With Him by Sophie Cousens. I had read one of Sophie Cousens' books and was like, I don't know. But then when this one came out, it sounded great. And so I bought it and then was listening to it on audio, and I could barely get through it on audio. Now, I did finish it, but it was just a struggle. There was nothing that really drew me in. It was just very simplistic romance, and it was slow moving. And then the last disappointment so far that I called out was First Time Caller by B.K. Borrison. I had seen a lot of hype about B.K. Borrison's books, and so this is the first one that I read. I got it from Book of the Month Club, and it was not good. I just did not like the storyline, the plot, the characters. There was nothing redeeming about anybody in the book. That's my 2 cents. I know there's a lot of people who liked it. I did not. The next question on this list is, what is the biggest surprise that I've had this year for books? Okay, let's start off with the most recent book, which was The First Time for Everything by K.L. Walther. As I mentioned in some of my daily vlogs, K.L. Walther is an author that I really enjoy when aesthetically. Her book covers are amazing. The plots sound so good, but every time I finish a book, I leave with like a 3-star feeling. They're very mid, and they lose me somewhere in the middle. However, I just finished A First Time for Everything and thought it was phenomenal. I ended up giving it 4 stars. It wasn't quite 4.5 or 5 stars, just for the simple fact that it still had the little dragging part in the middle, but this book was just a little bit better. This one follows Mads, whose brother is recently engaged and getting married, and his fiance has been kind of standoffish, but she does invite Mads, who's 17, to be a bridesmaid. And so Mads starts kind of joining the bridesmaids for different parties and get-togethers. And at one of them, they do Truth or Dare and find out that Mads has never been kissed, never had a boyfriend, and so they get on this mission to get her set up so she has a date for the wedding. Now, aside from that, she has a guy named Marco in her life who's a couple years older. She went to high school with him. Obviously, he graduated already, but he's still very much around because their family owns like a restaurant in town, and so their families know each other. And then there's Connor, who is her age, who's been her friend for a long time, but he's sort of like a playboy. He dates a lot, and she's just never had an opportunity to date him. And so the premise around that was really cute, as she's trying to find a guy to date. I won't spoil it, but I will say sometimes love is right where you're not looking. So I really liked that book and the ending of it. And then I'm going to keep talking about Silver Elite. Huge surprise. I actually picked it up one day on an ebook deal. Here, having heard not a lot about it, but anytime a new release goes on ebook deal, I usually pick it up because the ebook deals are like $6.99 or less versus like a $30 hardcover book. And then I saw somebody talk about it, and then I was off and running, and it was really so good. I can't recommend it enough. And then I read a book earlier in the year called Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, which was a huge surprising book for me, in which we are really, I guess, following some social commentary around how the news can be so one-sided. We follow a man, white male, that's important to know, who is dating a black female, and he's calling his parents, who are very conservative. They watch Fox News, like Fox News, and every once in a while they call him in hysterics because he lives in New York, like, you gotta get out of there, people are dying, it's horrible, it's the worst place ever. But they're his parents, and he tries to, you know, accept them for who they are. He calls them once and they don't answer, then calls again, doesn't answer, so he decides to drive down to their home, only to find that their town has kind of been taken over by Fox News, in the sense that everybody's sort of zombie-like watching the news and this conservative viewpoint, and he's trying to navigate with his parents why they have turned in this way. This book is part social commentary, part thriller, part weird. There are some very interesting parts in there. I would check trigger warnings, but it was so good and so unexpected. I actually heard it on somebody else's YouTube channel, and so glad that I read it. The next question is a new favorite author. Surprise, surprise, it is Dani Francis, the author of Silver Elite. I've never heard of her writing before, but after reading the book, I was like on the mad search to find more books from her. And so she's new for me. And then my newest fictional crush is the next question, and that would be Cross, who is the main guy in Silver Elite. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking about it. Actually, I have to mention it one more time. Okay, my newest favorite character, I put two. It's Aiden and Irene from Romance Rivalry. Romance Rivalry is by author Susan Lee. I've talked about this book quite a bit too. I got an e-arc of it and then purchased the book because it was so good, and then just recently re-listened to it on audio. And this book follows Aiden and Irene, who are booktubers, and they are kind of rivals on the internet. Aiden is popular because he's a man who reads romance novels and comments on them, and he has a huge following. And Irene often has different views from Aiden, and so Aiden's posse are always in her comments making lots of remarks. Anyway, Aiden and Irene end up going to the same college. They begin a friendship and start working together, and it evolves into love. However, I really liked the way their characters were written. They were well developed. They had full round personalities. We were able to understand their family, the dynamics, and why they are the way they are. And so I really liked them. Just a few more questions left, and these were kind of hard to answer, not gonna lie. So if you do this tag, just prepare. Get yourself a little time to prepare for the video. Okay, the next question is the book that made you cry. So far, none. I don't really cry with books. As you guys know, the first time I cried with a book was Firefly Lane last year, Kristen Hanna, but I don't generally cry with books, so no books so far. And then books that made me happy this year, Romance Rivalry and Silver Elite, and enough is said about that. The most beautiful books that I've bought this year or received, I will say the book cover for First Time for Everything by K.L. Walther is gorgeous, and then Summer in the City is the Barnes & Noble edition, is just beautiful with the sprayed edges. It's pink. It's so chef's kiss. And then the final question is, what book do you need to read by the end of the year? Now, this is a hard question for me to answer because I'm very much a mood reader who attempts to make a pile of possibilities each month. However, I can't say what I have to read by the end of the year. What I'll say is that I have a lot of books that I'm in the middle of. Yesterday, I just looked on my Kindle for like all of the unread books that I have, and I have like 41 unread books that are started and stopped somewhere. And so I would really like to go back and wrap up some of the loose ends on the books that I haven't read. I'm not in the middle of a lot of series right now, so I don't have to worry about that, but I really just want to finish some of these books that are hanging in the balance. And most of them aren't books that weren't good. It's just that something else came along and I stopped and never came back. And so my goal would be to get those finished up by the end of the year. So that is the end of this mid-year book tag. I hope you enjoyed and found some new reading material for the second half of the year. I'm excited to continue on the journey of what I'll be reading. I love all your book recommendations if you want to put some down below. Again, if you decide to make your own video, I will definitely be looking out for it. So as always, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.